Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Masks Off. I'm Kim Gross, and my guest today is Whitney Fleming, correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay. And we were just talking a moment ago. I'm so excited. We are going to have such a great conversation today. And I'm going to let Whitney in a moment explain what she does, but she works with parents and teens and tweens, and we are going to have such an awesome conversation. But let me start with the quote as I normally do. And this quote was offered by Whitney. And the quote is, "After nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world." I love that. And that's by Philip Pullman. Oh, I so agree with that. Stories are
Yep.
amazing. But we can talk about that in just a moment. Let's start with having you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what makes you tick, what makes you thrive. What are you doing in the world?
Sure. So thank you so much for having me to start. It's exciting. I love doing this and talking with other parents and people who are trying to change the narrative is really what I'm all about. And that's who I am. Everything I do in my life is been not to tell people how they should live their life, but how I reframe um I don't even want to say stereotypes, but narratives, cultural narratives, or just parenting narratives, or the way we should live our life narratives, how I reframe those things to try to grow as a person and as a parent. And that's really what my life mission is. And then I say I try to do that by vulnerability and sharing my story. So that's like what I'm about. That's what makes me tick. That's what makes me get up in the morning. And the vehicle I do that is I co-own a blog called Parenting Teens and Tweens, literally at parentingteensandtweens.com. And our mission there is a lot the same. It's just about, again, we are not experts that have gone to school, even though we have some of those that write for us on specific topics. We really just want to be a place where we share a lot of stories that help parents feel less alone and think about things in a different way so they can, parent better, but not even just parent better, but more connectively to their child. So that's what we do over there. And then the fun part is I over the past 8 or 9 years have a social media platform called Whitney Fleming Writes, because I started off more as a freelance writer, and somehow we've grown to almost like 300,000 people on Facebook, and I just share my stories over there. And it's everywhere from really deep personal things that my kids are okay with me talking about. And then I've written some books, and, I do funny memes, and it's just a fun place for me to kind of express myself. But it's grown into this really cool community where I think people can just come and feel less alone about the struggles in parenting teens.
I love everything you said. I don't even know where I want to start. I think I want to start with the piece that you named about the vulnerability piece, because I feel like that is so key as well. And that is how I show up on this platform of Masks Off. And that's the whole concept behind take
Right.
off your mask and be who you truly are. And you have to be super vulnerable to be that way. And Brene Brown often talks about how vulnerability is the heart of connection. It
Right.
is the heart of connection. Every single relationship that I have now or have had in the past where I don't show up vulnerably, that connection is not there.
Sure.
If I'm having my mask on and I'm on the surface, the connection just isn't there. Would you agree?
Right. Oh my gosh, 100%. Every solid relationship I have is definitely because of vulnerability, including the ones with my kids.
100%. And then that's the next piece that I wanted to bring in, because for me, being able to take off my mask and be vulnerable and take responsibility and ownership for how I show up as a parent. And I've learned so much of this through Dr. Shafali and conscious parenting,
Right.
that I'm able to have such a different type of relationship with my kids, and they are 24 and 21 now. And
Hmm.
before I did that work, I took everything personally,
Right.
everything that they said and
Right.
did every
Right.
time, when they were in their teens and tweens, and every time they tried to stand up for themselves against, this is like 10 years ago, 13
Sure.
years ago, I was like, oh my God, what do you mean? What do you mean? How could you say that? I try
Right.
so hard. I try so hard to be such a good
Right.
mom. Right. And
Right.
those were the words my mom used on me, the guilt. I'm trying so
Right.
hard to
The
do
guilt.
everything, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So it makes a difference when it's not, as you said, it's not about telling parents how to do it or how to be
Hmm.
parents, it's just about sharing like what has worked for you, what's working for
Hmm.
me, so that we can show up in a way that we have these more heart-centered,
Hmm.
heartfelt,
Hmm.
honest, open connections with our kids.
100%. And I would even say, what I talk to parents about is that um, every time I've improved the relationship with especially in the teenage years, every time I've changed my relationship in a positive way, it's because I changed myself, not
Yeah.
my teen changing them. And that's the biggest thing. So sometimes, when I share stuff on Facebook, people will be like, how can you share this? Are your kids not embarrassed? And I said, why are my kids embarrassed? They're being a teenager. I'm embarrassed because I need to be the adult. And so that's my thing. It's not like when I talk about my incidences, even things, I had a daughter who was going through the little lying, sneaking phase. And,
Mm,
that was really hard because that was not the relationship that I envisioned. And then I realized, yes, it was her choice at 12 and 13 to lie. However, what I was doing was certainly not giving her an open, conducive relationship where she felt like she could talk to me and be honest to me. And then when I was catching her, I certainly wasn't responding in a way that would ensure she wouldn't do it the
mm,
next time.
yep.
So, you want your kids to be responsible and make good choices, but we also have to expect them to make mistakes. And how we respond is at least 99% of it. And that's why I say that is why I feel comfortable sharing my story, because I am not saying that my kid got better. I'm always saying I got better. And
Oh,
that's what it is. And so that's why when people are like, how could you? And I'm very specific, even though I share a lot, I am very careful about what I'm sharing online, and to make sure I don't share big details. It was just, and to be honest, what she was lying about was pretty stupid. But I do know that parents go through things where the lying is big, whether it's
yeah.
drugs or whatever. But I'd like to think that when I have faced those issues, I apply the same principles of whether she was lying about, going to a friend's house or using her phone inappropriately, or if she was lying to me about drinking or drugs or something else. I now apply the same principles to everything. And that's what's helped me have a better relationship with my daughter. And I think by having that, my daughter feels more open and she makes better decisions, and we can work through that stuff together. So, that's just a perspective that I think sometimes don't understand. People don't understand about my writing is I'm not an expert. I'm not going to be talking about my clients. I am talking about something that's very personal, but it's always about how I changed. It's never about
Yeah.
me expecting my kid to get better. She's who she is and trying to learn how to be an adult. Sorry about my AirPod falling out, but it's all about me. So
100%. And Dr. Shafali would love, love, love what you're saying right now, because that is the heart of conscious parenting, is about growing ourselves up. And I
yep.
love that you're saying that. I just will share a story. And then if you have any stories as well, because I think you mentioned it, that's how people connect and relate the most, is by
Right.
story. And I just
Right.
want to preface by saying, I too have asked both of my kids, and I've been doing masks off for 3 years now. I asked them in the
Mhm.
very beginning, are you comfortable with
Right.
me sharing stories, blah, 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 and I
Yep.
assured them that I was not calling them out. I was calling myself out.
Right. Right.
And so I have gotten
Same
permission from
thing.
both. And I
Hmm.
know what things are off limits for them. There is a
Exactly.
boundary, and I know that boundary,
Hmm. Me too.
and I will
Hmm.
never violate that.
No.
They come
I
first.
also said if they ever wanted me to quit,
Yes,
you won't have to ask me twice. Like I
exactly.
my relationship with them is the most important thing in my life. And if they said I can't do this anymore and I had to go work somewhere else,
Yep.
and I would do it in a heartbeat. So
Same. And
mm,
and not that this is like an excuse or anything, but the reality is the people that are listening to me are not their
mhm.
demographic anyway, who they're most worried about at
Exactly.
this point in
Right.
time.
That's my kids always say, especially because I'm a writer, they're always like, Mom, because I'll do some funny memes and the kids actually think that's funny and they share those. And when I see them, out, they'll be like, I love that funny meme. But when I share other things that are longer, my kids are always like, they're never going to take the time to read that, Mom. Like, don't even worry. They're like, they're never going to read that. So it
It
is true.
is so true. It's so true.
Mhm.
And so what I was just going to say to kind of highlight what you were saying about the lying piece, and the first of all, the daughter that did that, was she the one that you said was
No.
the one who people
Mm-mm.
pleased the heck out of you?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
But all
Well,
three of my kids started as people pleasers though, because I'm a people pleaser.
okay.
So I'm a
Oh,
reform.
good.
I am a constant people pleaser in progress.
In progress.
So
I love that. I love it. Well, I do have a people pleaser perfectionist Facebook group,
mhm.
recovering people pleasers,
I
recovering
I should probably
perfectionists.
join. I should probably join.
So, and at the end of the day, what is that? At the end of the day, it's codependence, right? So really what I am is I'm recovering from codependency. And so that's what it is that I help
Yep.
others with in that group. And at the end of the day, the way it shows up most for me is in people pleasing and perfectionism. So that's why I highlight those two all the time. And so, in terms of the lying piece, because when I was growing up, had to be the perfectionist and the people pleaser because that's how I got external validation, I lied
Right.
all the time
Right.
because at the end of the day, I was smoking cigarettes. I was drinking.
Right.
I
Right.
was doing all these things that a lot of teenagers will experiment with, but those behaviors didn't go hand in
Right.
hand with being a perfectionist and a people pleaser.
Right.
So I
In your
lied all
persona.
the time in my persona. But to highlight and underscore what you said about the way that I showed up and reacted when I caught my daughter at
Hmm.
13 years old, probably around the same time, and I would find beer bottles hidden in her
Right.
bedroom,
Right.
it was about just reacting. And I was
Hmm.
coming from a place of fear,
Yep.
anxiety, and worry because my story was, this is how crazy it is. My story was, oh my goodness, she's hiding beer in her room. Like, this is all subconscious, by the way. Like,
Oh,
boom, boom,
sure.
boom,
No,
boom, right? It's
you
just,
start, you've already written the
yeah,
story, the
she's
movie.
she's going to be an alcoholic because
Right.
because
Sure.
she's got a
She's
beer.
13 and yeah. Yeah,
And there is
100%.
such fear around that I couldn't come from a place of having a
Right.
conversation with her, a conscious conversation, because I had so
Mhm.
much crap in the way.
Right.
But as I started to do the inner work and I became introduced to Dr. Shafali and the conscious parenting and realized this is about me, and I knew how, like, this is a pattern, and then I knew how to pause and go inward and
Mhm.
take care of my anxiety, take care of my fear, then I was able to show up differently. But it took many, many years and a long time. And
Oh,
I'm
for sure.
now, right, it takes a while and it still takes practice. But I'm now at
Mhm.
a place where my daughter's 21 and she doesn't always tell me like right away some of the
Mhm.
things, but she does
Right.
eventually. It might take her a couple days or a week, but she's like, I just want you to know, Mom. And she shares everything because now she doesn't want to lie to me at
Right.
all. She
Right.
knows now that I can hold space and hold a container
Yes.
for her to tell the truth
Mhm.
or not like tell the truth, but to share
Right.
her
No,
truth,
tell
share
you, right, right,
tell me, and I'm not gonna flip out. Like, I used
right,
to flip the F out,
right.
like, big
Which
time.
is, and what I'm finding now is when they do tell you, that's also equally as scary. Like, because
Yes.
some of the stuff they now feel comfortable telling you, you're just like, and
Right.
so that's like been my, as my teens are getting ready to go to college, and now they feel very empowered to share with me, and they're telling
Yes.
me some stuff, that's going on at parties or whatever. And it's now I'm just like, it's a whole new, like, maybe it was better when I didn't know. It was like kidding. But I mean, I just was like,
Yeah.
and sometimes and I've also had to say, like, hey, one of my daughters was like, "Oh my gosh, your face, mom, right now." And I'm not saying a word. I'm like, but I have not yet been able to control my face. Like, like
Yes.
my facial expression. Because I think I was like, so my jaw was dropped.
Yes.
And so they said, no, we're going to give you, some flexibility on your face. But,
That's
I
funny.
learned to control my emotions. So,
Yes. I hear you, and it is still really, really hard because at the end of the day, we're
mm,
still moms. So
hun- yeah.
so that's one piece. So now let's talk about your Facebook post where you did
Like,
share about your daughter people pleasing the heck out of you because
mm,
as I was saying to you before, like one of my goals and missions is to really help raise awareness for parents
okay.
to become aware
Mhm,
of when their child, teen, tween, young adult, my daughter's
mhm,
21, still puts on the perfection mask. To be
sure.
aware of when, number one, when our children are putting on the mask,
Mhm,
and to be aware of it, not to stop it completely, because I don't know that we can really prevent it at all, but to help them become aware of when they're putting the mask on and how to have that conversation about it. So
right.
you talked about in your Facebook
Mm,
post, you said for years your daughter
mhm,
wore the clothes that you wanted her to wear, did the
mhm,
activities that you signed her up for, and people pleased the crap out of me.
mhm.
It's so nice, isn't it, when they comply like that? It's so
She
nice.
was so easy, and I thought we were gonna have the best relationship ever because
And
it
then
was great. And then she turned about 13, and well, it was really, to be honest, this was going to happen anyways, but it was really a lot during COVID. Um,
Mm,
she grew 5 inches. She's 5'10" now, and so she grew.
mm,
She ended her 8th grade during COVID, and then she, like, literally the day of the lockdown started, she started growing. And so she came out of COVID an entirely different person than she went in. And in every way, her feet were bigger, she went from like 5'4" to 5'10". Everything about her changed. And in the beginning I thought it was just COVID, but it wasn't. It was, she changed.
mm.
She became a different person. And you know she was trying to figure out who she was, and I was kind of annoyed that she wasn't who I wanted her to be, because our whole relationship dynamic changed. And um she pushed boundaries in good and bad ways. Some things happened, and it was really hard for me to adjust. And because we had always just had this really fun, great relationship, and it became challenging and hard and difficult. And it wasn't that she was a bad kid in any way, but she just wasn't going along with everything that I said. And that was really hard. And everything with parenting, you don't see it when you're in it, right? Like, you're in the weeds, so you don't see what's going on because it happens really subtly, over time. It wasn't like just one day she woke up and she was a different person. It just, first it was her clothes, and then it was her music, and then it was
Mm.
what she liked to watch and eat. She wanted to become a vegetarian, and I was kind of like, what is going on? And I have another Facebook post about this, but a really telling thing for me was, my husband bought me this dress for our wedding anniversary, and he's never bought me clothes, I think, in like 20 something years. But I didn't love it. It didn't fit right on me. I felt really uncomfortable in it. And so I took my daughter shopping with me, and I was trying to get her to buy some clothes as well. And every time we went into a store, she would not try anything on that I thought would look great on her. And I was getting more and more aggravated. And I could feel myself getting ready to lose it. And, we were in one store and I tried a dress on, and she was so excited for me. She said, "Oh my gosh, mom, that dress is so you." And she's like, "It looks so
Mm.
good on you. Like, it's so you." And I sat there and I felt dumbfounded. And I was like, it reminded me that she's just trying stuff on, and to try to figure out where she feels the best. And as she's going through this process, she's not rejecting me. She's trying stuff on to find what makes her feel good. And I know it sounds like kitschy, but I really felt it in that moment. To see her face light up like that for me,
Mm.
for when I felt good, was just like, she wants that from me for her. And so I told her finally, I said, "Where do you want to go shopping?" And she went in and to a store I probably didn't want to go into. And she found some outfits that where you could say she felt good. And these were not like crazy things. It was just stuff I would have never picked for her at the time. She was figuring out like what she wanted to wear. And she came out, and sure enough, another mom of teens was sitting there, and she's like, "Where did you get that outfit? I would love to get that for my daughter." And I was like, I just missed the whole thing, this past 6 months, and how much time I wasted. And that was a kind of a pivotal turning point for me, where I realized it's not rejecting me, it's about her finding herself. And the more I make our relationship contingent upon making me happy, the more she's going to put the mask on and pretend. And I didn't want that for her. Her path has been a little different than what I expected, but it's still beautiful. And now we have a fantastic relationship because I'm appreciating what she wants to do, and the different things. And we have a lot of fun together again. But it was rocky for a while. But again, that wasn't her. That was me. And she made some bad choices during that time, but that was probably because she was just trying to find herself. And I was telling her no, in a way, through my own language. So that was a really pivotal turning point in our relationship, and a lot with all three of my kids. When I had to step back and say, this is not about me and what I want, it has to be about them. And when you figure that part out, I feel like your whole relationship changes on everything. And it really did change my whole parenting perspective.
I first of all want to say, oh my God, like, thank you so much for that honesty. Thank you for owning that and taking
Yeah,
responsibility for that, because that's it. That's such a key component.
right.
And I think that this is such an important conversation that we're having, because
Hmm.
I don't know if parents are aware that when they say things and do things, the effect that it can have on their child. I didn't
Right.
know. I had no
I didn't know.
freaking clue. And like you said, for 6 months before, you didn't know that you were making it
Yep.
about you until that moment.
Hmm.
And it took, I don't know what moment it was for me, but it took,
Right.
some kind of awakening and shaking and stirring. It was probably the Dr. Shafali stuff. Actually, that's
Sure. Yeah.
what it was. I remember she was, I went to a conference in New York City on mindfulness in schools, and she was the keynote speaker. And the way she just spoke, I cried the whole entire time, because she spoke to soul.
Yeah.
And it was from then I started following her, and I was like, oh my God, the reason my relationship is so rocky with my kids, and I think they were 13 and 10 at the time, is because
Mhm.
I was making it all about me. And I said even
Right.
earlier on in this episode that I took everything so personally. And
Right.
so I don't know what type of clothing your daughter was interested at the time, but I can tell
Mhm.
you mine was interested in what I perceived as being very inappropriate and very
Mhm.
risque. And her father couldn't even
Right.
like forget it. He was like,
Right.
No, like no
Right.
freaking
Right.
way, you know? Uh,
Mhm.
but that's again, that was about me being like, oh my God, if you wear that, then you're gonna get raped. Again, that
Right.
catastrophizing kind of thing, or how will
Right.
a big one for me was how will other parents
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
perceive me and look at me
Yeah.
like, what kind of mom is she letting her child do?
Mhm.
Blah, blah, blah. What is wrong with
Right.
her? So it was
Right.
my own image that I had to
Mhm.
protect.
Which is most of it, I think, for
Which
all
is,
of us.
you know,
Yeah. We want to be viewed as a good parent because it is the most important personal thing we do as, in our lives will be how we parent our kids. It is the most personal thing. There's nothing more personal ever like than that one thing. And, if you're not viewed as a good mom, then, you feel like just, dejected in every
yeah.
part of your life. And we forget that our job isn't to be a good mom, it's to be the best mom to your kid in that moment. And in fact, not that I'm trying to plug it, but that's I'm writing a second book, and it's
Yes.
literally on that exact topic. It's literally, how do we stop parenting out of fear, of what might happen for the future, and how do we parent the kid in front of us who has very specific needs. And I am a big believer that this is a little bit about why we're having a mental health crisis in our
Yes.
country right now. And I say not just with kids, because even though our kids are really struggling with anxiety and loneliness, that means parents are struggling with
Yeah.
anxiety and loneliness as well, and we're not taking care of ourselves. And it's because, like, we're terrified if our kids aren't on the right sports team, they're not going to be able to do something in college, or if they don't take that AP class, they're not going to be able to get into college. If they don't get invited to the right prom or the right whatever, it's going to impact the rest of their lives. But because of social media and everything, and just the chaotic nature of the world, we just are constantly parenting from a place of fear. And I know I was doing that for sure. It takes so much self-reflection and bravery and support. And I have that support. So that's why I tell people, like, I'm not going to say this is easy, because it was hard for me. And I feel like I am very in a very supportive network. But for most people, especially if you're a single parent, if you have a kid with special needs, or there's
Mm.
so many dynamics, like, to do these things and to think this way is incredibly hard. And so that's one of the reasons why I share my story, to say, this is the way I was thinking of it. So if you're thinking this way too,
Mhm.
it's okay. Because that's instead what we're saying and what we're seeing on our social media feeds is, my kid just scored a 4.0, a 1600
Mm.
SAT, and cured cancer, and they're
Yeah.
going to, whatever school. And you're just like, oh my God, my kid wouldn't come out of their bedroom last night. And
Yeah.
it's terrifying. And that's the part where I'm just so passionate about listening to your kids right now, and not worrying about where they will be when they're 25, because I know what my parents were worried about when I was 16, and getting me into college and what I wanted to do, is certainly not where I am now, because Facebook was not even a product, like, wasn't even thought. Like, I
Yes.
don't even know how old Mark Zuckerberg was, probably like 7,
Yeah.
when that was happening. So, like, we just have lost our perspective. And like you said, we put on these masks of how we want people to see us and how we want to be perceived as parents, as opposed to focusing on parenting the kid in front of us.
Right. Totally. And it's my belief, and that's why I'm really wanting to put this out on this platform,
Hmm.
is that because of all of that, and because our, well, even us as adults, but our young adults and teens feel that pressure to put that
Yes.
mask on out in the world, that when they are home and they're in their bedroom, no freaking surprise that they're feeling depressed
Right.
and lonely, because they're not
Right.
showing up as their true selves. They can't. They
Right.
have to be this super uber student
Right.
getting the 1600 and the 14 or the 4.0 and getting into the best
Mhm.
school and curing cancer, or the next
Right.
NFL, NBA player, that they
Right.
can't be their true selves.
Hmm.
And when we're cut off from our true authentic nature, we're
Yep.
going to feel depressed and anxious, and we're
Right.
going to numb out, and we're going to turn to alcohol, to sex, to drugs, to
Or
whatever.
social media.
So this is why I feel so passionate
It's
about
very
having
important.
this conversation, because that is what's happening to our young kids. And that's what's
Hmm.
happening to our generation as well. Like you said, it's
It
us as
is.
well. We are
It is.
feeling depressed, anxious,
Hmm.
lonely. We are numbing out. We are the most over, like Brene Brown said in her
Yeah.
vulnerability talk, TED talk, we are the most overweight, in debt,
Yep.
addicted, whatever,
Hmm.
lonely, blah, blah,
Generation.
blah, generation going.
Right.
And I feel like this is such a key part of it. And
Yep.
so I want to just like, as we wrap up, I just want to underscore what you said. It is hard. It is so hard, right, to do this work. I do it every day. I go inward
Hmm.
and I'm trying to be self-aware, and
Right.
look at my patterns and then own my patterns. Oh, okay, this pattern is because this wound from being a child. Now let me tend to that
Right.
so that I can show up differently. It's my 5-step power pathway that I created and use every day. Even recently with my kids, I like this old mindset that they have to be in a relationship to be
Right.
okay.
Right.
Well, I send them 2 messages. I send the message, don't get married early. Wait until you're like
Hmm.
30, 35 until you get
Hmm.
married. That's one thing I say. And that's coming from a wound in a story as well. I know it is.
Right.
And
Right.
the other part of me is like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a girlfriend? Because I don't want them being alone. But the truth is, all of that's my stuff. All that's my shit
Right.
that I have to work out.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
my daughter just said to me the other day that she's getting to such a place of being so okay with herself and comfortable being alone and not in a relationship. And that
Right.
is music.
That's amazing. Right.
That's music to a mother, to a parent's
Right.
ears. And my son is doing the same, that they are learn.
Right.
He has said to me, I'm learning how to be comfortable being alone. Like, oh my
That's
God.
the most important thing.
Right. And so like,
I talk about that all the time. Something pivotal that I talked about one time on a walk with my friend was we either run away from what our parents are or we embrace it, right? Like there's not a lot of in between. I want to live a life where my kids embrace what I
mm,
am and what's important, not run away from it.
yeah,
And that's like something that keeps me going. I think about that a lot. Like I want to live the best me life I can so
yeah,
they can embrace that and apply it for themselves. Not like, as you said, carry my own baggage around that took me almost 50 years to figure out. I don't want them to take 50 years of their life trying to cure being a people pleaser or trying to get rid of these expectations or not understanding why I'm crazy sometimes and anxious and you know
yeah,
own your stuff, own your shit. And
yeah.
it's but doing that takes a lot of work. And I don't want to
Yes.
discount that either. And it's tough.
I want to just say too, yes, it takes a lot of work for sure. It has taken a lot of work, but and I want to say, and so I call it from my prison to my paradise. The
Mhm.
work has been long lasting and
Yes.
transformational. And
Mhm.
my paradise is having so much freedom,
Right.
so much
Peace.
inner peace that I never had,
Right.
joy, and being able to step into
Yeah.
my sovereignty as a
Mhm.
people pleaser is
Right.
like, whoa, wow, crazy.
Right.
So it's so worth it. Yes, it's hard, but it's worth it. And it's that
100%.
other saying, no pain, no
Yeah.
gain. So just to like round out that, you also said something very important, which is that your hope is that by you doing this work, that it won't take your kids the next 50 years
Mhm.
to figure it out. And
Yep.
that's my passion as well. And also part of this platform is to help parents, again, to help their
Mhm.
teens, their young adults to take off the masks at a much earlier point. That's the whole point of why
Right.
I'm wanting to have conversations with other parents like you,
Yep,
because that are doing the work, because the hope is that if we figure it out, we'll help them at a much younger age so that they don't have this
exactly.
really long trajectory of pain and suffering. Yes, there's always going to be
Hmm.
pain, but suffering is optional, right? And the
Right.
more
Hmm.
that they become aware at an earlier time, the more hope there is for less
A
suffering.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
So I love that you said that, and I do believe that the work that you're doing and that I'm doing and many others like us
Mhm.
will ripple out. It'll have
I
that
think so
ripple
too.
effect. So I am super
Change
grateful about
has to
that.
come because there's just no way that this is sustainable.
100%. It has to. And it
So
is. And I see that it is. So
I
I'm
do too.
really glad about that. So then I guess finally, you did mention your book. Tell us a little
Mm.
bit about where people can find you, how they can find you,
Sure.
and what you have going on in the world, and we'll wrap it up there.
Great. I recently published a book. It's called Loving Hard When They're Hard to Love. My teenagers, and their friends especially make a big joke about it. Does this mean, we're all hard to love? And I'm like, well, guess what? It's not really about you. It's learning to for parents to learn how to love through the hard parts, to
Mm,
love harder through the hard parts. And it's okay that they're a little harder to love. Our goal is to love them hard and
mm,
through the hard. And so it's really just a book of essays that I've written over the years. There's 55 essays, and I'm really excited. The feedback's great. It's mainly on Amazon now, but you can find it on online retailers. And it's the feedback really is just I can relate to this, and I feel less alone. And
mm.
that's all the only reason why I write. So that's where I'm at. And I'm really excited. I'm in the middle of signing another book deal to do Parenting the Kid in Front of You, which is really just to help empower parents to make decisions in the now as instead in the future. And it's going to be a lot of essays, but with more tips and reframing guidelines, I guess I should call
Mm.
them, how you can reframe things so you can make better decisions for your kids. You're not going to come and read my book and I'm going to solve all your problems, but you might start thinking differently. And
Mm.
that's really what it's about. So I'm not sure when we're going to release that yet. We're kind of in the middle of some publishing deals, but I'm really excited about this book because I think it could be a great kind of platform to what we're talking about. And other than that, I hope some people can come join us on our blog at parentingteensandtweens.com. We have so much good content, a lot of stuff about heart-centered parenting and conscientious parenting and different ways you can look at different issues. And it's from experts, a lot of content from me and my business partner and I, and a lot of parents that have just been in the trenches. So we're excited about that. And then if you just want to kind of laugh a little, cry a little, feel at home, you can come to my Facebook page or Instagram at Whitney Fleming Writes.
Oh my
So
God. Thank you so much.
one of my daughters is 18 and she was explaining to me about how she was feeling so adult lately. And then
Yeah.
she asked me if when I went to the store, if I would pick up nuggies,
Yes.
chicken nuggies for her.
Yes.
And where to put a stamp. So that was
That
like,
was it. Where does the stamp go?
yeah,
That
and this was all in like right after.
So thank you
Right.
so much
Thank you.
for being a guest. Like I said at the beginning, I knew it was going to be a good conversation, and I just
Thanks.
felt so connected to you. It just flowed so easily. I really enjoyed it. And
I appreciate it.
yeah, thank you. And I'll put all of your information in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
I'm Kim Gross, and I will see you next time.